I thought it would just be another camping trip with my straight best friend. Just one more weekend in the woods with Leo, nothing dramatic, nothing complicated. But when his sleeping bag tore and we had to share mine, something happened in that tent that changed everything between us. My name Nathan, I'm 28. If I could live anywhere, it wouldn't be a penthouse or a city apartment. I'd choose a place like this, somewhere wild where the trees are older than anything we've built, where the sky stretches open and honest above you and every breath tastes like pine instead of exhaust. That's why I planned this trip, a full weekend in the Olympic National Forest. No Wi-Fi, no noise, no expectations. Just me. And Leo. I tried not to overthink that part, but of course I did. We met 3 years ago in a sophomore environmental science lab. He spilled an entire jar of river sediment across our desk and swore under his breath. I laughed loud enough to annoy the professor. We became lab partners, then coffee buddies, then friends. Somewhere along the way, I fell for him quietly, stupidly, deeply. Leo was everything I wasn't: open, bright, easygoing, charming without trying. When he talked about conservation or hiking or anything outdoors, his whole face lit up. But Leo only ever dated girls, straight, off limits, so I buried everything. I felt like roots under frozen ground. A few weeks ago, I texted him, "Feel like disappearing into the woods for a weekend." His response came instantly, "Hell yes, when do we leave?" So here we were, loading gear into my Subaru on a fatting Friday afternoon. "This is going to be epic," Leo said, tossing his pack in. "Work been insane." He stretched to tighten the roof rack, lifting his shirt just enough to show a strip of warm skin above his waistband. I looked away fast, pretending the tent poles needed my full attention. "You still stuck at that consulting firm?" I asked. "Yeah," he sighed, "all desk work lately. I need some field time before I lose my mind." He hopped into the passenger seat, cued his playlist, and suddenly we were on the highway, trees blurring past while he told stories, sang horribly to half the songs, and complained about a plant he was probably days away from killing. I listened, like always, soaking in the warmth he never realized he radiated. Halfway through the drive, he smirked at me. "Remember that sophomore year Mount Rainier trip?" I groaned, "Don't remind me. You tried to start a fire with 2 sticks and YouTube confidence." "I almost had it. We ate cold beans from a can because you refused to admit defeat." I laughed. "At least I didn't forget the can opener." "That was one time," he muttered, grinning. We reached the trailhead at sunset. Lavender and gold light filtered through the trees. The air smelled like pine and damp earth, my favorite scent in the world. We hiked in silence, comfortable and familiar, until we reached the hidden lake. Leo stepped into the clearing and let out a breath. "Damn, Nathan, this is beautiful." The lake was smooth and black, reflecting the sky like melted silver. Pines towered around us like ancient guardians. I watched the awe spread across his face, and for a moment the whole forest felt still. We pitched the tent together, me handling the knots and stakes, Leo gathering firewood like he was preparing for a small apocalypse. It felt easy, like muscle memory. We camped before, but never like this. Never just the two of us, nowhere near another person. By dinner, the air was cold. We ate a simple stir-fry, somehow perfect in the silence of the woods. The fire crackled, stars sharpened against the night sky, and the lake became a dark mirror beside us. "This is perfect," Leo said, mouth half full. "Seriously, dude, I needed this. You always find the best places." "You remembered marshmallows," I said, "but forgot a sleeping bag." He groaned, "Not my finest moment." "Let me see it," I said. He pulled out what looked like a defeated blanket. The zipper was completely dead, hanging open like a wound. "It's supposed to drop into the mid-40s tonight," I said. "Yeah, I was hoping it wasn't that bad." I looked at my sleeping bag, winter grade, wide, thick, built for two if you didn't mind closeness. My heart thudded. "You can share mine," I said, casual on the outside, chaos on the inside. "It's warm enough." "You sure?" "Yeah, better than freezing." His shoulders relaxed, and he smiled, that easy golden smile that ruined me every time. "Thanks, man, I promise I don't snore much." We stayed by the fire a while longer, talking, laughing, telling stories, pretending everything was normal. At least I was pretending. But every time the flames lit his face, every time he smiled at me across the firelight, something inside me shifted. This trip was supposed to be a break. A reset. But now, I wasn't sure I was ready for what might happen next. Not ready for what sharing that sleeping bag might mean. Not ready for what I'd wanted for 3 years becoming suddenly, terrifyingly possible. And as the fire burned low and the cold crept closer, I knew one thing for sure. This weekend wasn't going to be simple. Not anymore. He stood, walked over, and lifted the ruined nylon like a surrender flag. The corners sagged, the zipper dangling helplessly. He gave me a sheepish, lopsided smile. Worse than I thought, he sighed, might as well be a blanket. I stepped closer, the zipper wasn't just broken, it was dead, no way it would hold heat tonight. It's dropping into the low 40s, I murmured. Yeah, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I knew that gesture, nervous, unsure. Look, I hate to ask, but your sleeping bag is that big winter one, right? My pulse jumped, I glanced toward the tent. Inside was the double-wide Sub-Zero bag I'd bought for a solo winter trip, warm, thick, and definitely built for two. I took a slow breath. Yeah, I said evenly, there's room. He smiled, grateful, a little embarrassed. We'll be snug, but I promise not to steal the blanket. I shrugged like it was nothing. Inside, my heart slammed like it was trying to break free. Better than freezing, I said. We cleaned up camp without talking much, putting away food, dousing the fire, one last trip to the bathroom spot. The whole time, I tried not to imagine what it would feel like, his body pressed against mine, breath warm in the cold tent. Nothing between us but truth I'd buried for years. Inside, I laid the sleeping bag flat and unzipped it halfway. The lantern cast a soft amber glow across the tent walls, shadows flickering gently with the wind. Leo changed quickly into a t-shirt and flannel pajama pants. I turned away and did the same, pretending not to notice the shift of muscles under his skin the moment his shirt lifted just a little too high. So, how do you want to do this? He asked, hovering awkwardly by the entrance. You get in first, I said. You'll be by the wall, easier if you need to get up. He nodded and climbed in, settling with exaggerated care. Roomy enough for a king, he joked. I switched off the lantern. Darkness settled around us, soft and silver under the faint glow of the moon. I crawled in slowly, trying not to make it weird, but there was no way around it. It was tight. Our legs brushed, our arms touched, his shoulder pressed against mine with every breath. We lay stiffly in the dark, the forest whispering outside. This is kind of awkward, huh? Leo whispered. A bit, I admitted, but at least we're not freezing. He shifted onto his side, facing away. The movement brought his back right against my chest. I hesitated, my arm hovering in no man's land, then slowly draped it around his waist. Practical, I told myself. Natural. But it was more than that. Is this okay? I whispered. Yeah, he said quietly. His voice was low, rough, holding something I couldn't name. It's comfortable. His body relaxed into mine. Mine didn't, not fully. My heart thudded, my skin burned despite the cold. We stayed like that for a long time. Then, barely audible. Nathan, have you ever wanted something but were too afraid to admit it, even to yourself? My throat tightened. Yeah, I whispered, I have. Silence long enough to hurt. Long enough to think I'd broken something. Then slowly, his hand slid back through the darkness. He found mine where it rested on his waist. He intertwined our fingers, careful, deliberate. Not playful. Not accidental. Just real. My breath caught. My eyes stung. He didn't say another word. Our hands stayed locked together, hidden in the dark like roots growing underground, quiet, steady, stronger with every minute. I didn't sleep. I listened to his breathing. Felt his warmth. Replayed the moment he reached for me, holding on as if he'd been waiting to do it for years. Morning came gray and soft. I woke before he did, still wrapped around him, his back warm against my chest, his hand still in mine. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Eventually he stirred, blinking awake. And the weight of everything we hadn't said settled between us. He didn't let go right away. He just stared at the ceiling, expression tight. Then without a word, he slid out of the sleeping bag. He stretched in the narrow space, jaw clenched. Morning, I said lightly. Morning, he replied flat. He grabbed his water bottle and stepped outside. That set the tone. Quiet breakfast, burnt toast, scrambled eggs, not a joke between us. It shouldn't have hurt. But it did. At the lake, rinsing out pans, our shoulders brushed. He didn't flinch away, but he flinched inward. Fear. Confusion. Not disgust. By midday the air shifted. We returned to swim. The freezing lake bit into my skin, numbing everything until a calm settled in. Leo dove in with a dramatic yelp. Jesus, that's cold. You'll live, I teased. Oh, it's on, he laughed, lunging at me. We splashed, wrestled, dunked each other like kids. Between laughter, there were moments, brief, electric, when his hands lingered on my shoulders, when his chest pressed against mine, when he looked at me like he was trying to solve a mystery inside himself. And suddenly, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was charged. That night back at camp, he kept fidgeting with his hoodie strings, stealing glances, thinking too loudly. After dinner, he finally said, "I think I'll turn in." Yeah, me too. Inside the tent, he slipped into the sleeping bag first. I followed slower. The space between us felt wider this time, even though the bag forced us close. Then quietly, like a confession. I almost didn't come. What? He lay on his back, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I made up like 3 excuses, he said. Work, family, packing, all fake. Why? He exhaled, shaky, nervous. Because I was scared. My heart stopped. Scared of how I might feel if we were alone. The air vanished from the tent. Leo turned on his side, facing me now. His voice trembled. I've been thinking about you, Nathan, for months, and I kept pushing it down, telling myself it was just friendship, just closeness. But last night, when you put your arm around me, when I held your hand, I didn't want to let go. His fingers brushed mine again in the dark. I've been thinking about you in ways I didn't want to understand. I turned toward him fully. And for the first time in years, I let myself hope. Me too. I don't know who moved first. Him. Me. Both of us. But suddenly we were kissing. Soft. Careful. Hesitant at first, like he thought I might pull away. I didn't. The kiss deepened, warm hands on my face, my fingers gripping the fabric of his hoodie, pulling him closer. The tent was silent except for our breathing, warm and unsteady. The world narrowed to the taste of him, new, unsure, real. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. I've never kissed a guy before, he whispered. How was it? I breathed. His grin was small, shaky, beautiful. Kind of amazing. We kissed again. And again. Soft laughter between us, whispered confessions, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. I brushed a strand of hair behind his ear. Night had settled softly over the campsite, and the chill in the air pushed us closer inside the little tent. The kind of closeness that didn't feel awkward anymore, just familiar, warm, like something we'd both quietly grown into. Eventually, exhaustion pulled us under and Leo shifted toward me, curling naturally like he'd been doing it forever. His head rested beneath my chin, one leg draped over mine, the sleeping bag wrapped around us like it wasn't just fabric, but a moment we were being held inside of. For the first time, the tent didn't feel cramped. It felt like home. I lay awake for a long time, listening to the lake outside and feeling his breath warm against my neck, his fingers tangled with mine. Something inside me settled, something I hadn't felt in years, peace and anticipation, like the world was quietly rearranging itself. Morning came slow, gray light filtered through the fabric of the tent. I woke to the soft sound of his breathing, steady and warm. His arm was draped across my chest, his leg still tangled with mine. He fit there like he always had, but somehow it meant something more now. When I turned slightly, trying not to wake him, I found his eyes already open, sleepy, soft, and full of something unspoken. Morning, I whispered. He smiled, hey. For a while, we didn't talk. We didn't need to. The silence felt full, warm, new. Then he leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to my lips, slow, quiet, like a question he already knew the answer to. Later, while making breakfast on the camp stove, he kept bumping his hip against mine. Each time I pretended to be annoyed, and each time he grinned wider. He almost dropped the spatula at one point, and I shook my head. You're terrible at this. I'm distracted, he said, nudging me again. Shameless, I laughed. You're the one staring at me while I'm trying to cook, he teased, and I didn't even deny it. After breakfast, we packed light daybags and followed a narrow trail deeper into the woods. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in quiet bursts like the forest was letting us in on a secret. We didn't talk about labels or what this was becoming, but his hand slid into mine and this time I held on. We stopped by a small waterfall I'd found years ago and never shown anyone. The water sparkled in golden streams as it rushed over mossy rock. Leo stood close, mist settling on his skin, his smile softer than I'd ever seen. I've always loved nature, he said quietly, but this feels different. How? I'm not just seeing it, I'm feeling it, like it's wrapped around me, like I'm allowed to breathe again. He kissed me then with the sound of water rushing all around us, and I kissed him back, feeling the moment settle deep inside like something I wanted to keep forever. We took a few photos, sunlight on the water, the trees bending overhead, until he handed me the camera. Us too, he said, pulling me into the frame. We took a few, one smiling, one laughing, one where he kissed my cheek mid-shot. Moments captured proof that this wasn't imagined, that it was real. Later, stretched across a sun-warmed rock by the lake, he rested his head on my chest. What happens when we go home? He whispered. I breathed in slowly. We take it one step at a time. And the questions, he murmured. They'll come, I said, but maybe we're ready now. That evening, after the fire burned low, we crawled into the tent again, but it wasn't like the night before. There was no hesitation, no fear, only understanding. Leo turned toward me in the dim glow. Daniel, he whispered, I've never felt this with anyone. Me neither, I said, brushing my thumb along his cheek. He kissed me, slow, intentional, full of everything we hadn't been brave enough to say. We moved closer, learning the shape of this new thing between us through laughter, whispered names, wandering hands that stayed gentle and sure. Nothing rushed, nothing hurried, just us, finding warmth in closeness and quiet. When we finally settled, tangled together, the sleeping bag pushed half down, the cold air barely reaching us, his fingers traced lazy shapes across my stomach. I can't believe this is real, he whispered. It is, I said. He shifted, resting against me like I was something familiar and safe. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let this be the only time. I couldn't help smiling, I wasn't planning on it. Dawn came with soft rain tapping gently against the tent like a lullaby. Leo didn't move at first, still draped over me, warm and grounding. When he finally stirred, he murmured, I can hear you thinking. All good thoughts, I whispered. We kissed lazily beneath the blanket, the kind of quiet affection that made the world slow down, but eventually we had to face the day. The rain grew heavier, the tent grew colder, it was time to pack. Leo sat by the fire pit watching the smoke curl up as I rolled our gear. You okay? I asked. He nodded. I'm thinking this weekend's gonna stay with me, no matter what. I sat beside him, our knees touching. Me too. The hike back was slow, partly from the wet trail but mostly because we kept stopping to kiss under the trees when no one was around. Each time he smiled, something in me settled deeper. This wasn't a moment lost in the woods. This was the beginning of something. At the car, he tossed in his pack and then turned to me abruptly. Wait, he said. What? He stepped closer and kissed me again, slow, certain, letting the rain soak into our clothes. I love you, he whispered. I think I've known for a while. My heart clenched, warm and full. I held his hand all the way back, only letting go when the road demanded both hands. We talked about small things, movies, dinner spots, work, but underneath all of it, something steady hummed, something real. As we neared the city, he squeezed my hand. What's funny? He asked. Nothing, I said, smiling. I was scared to come back, but now I'm excited. Why? Because now I get to do everything I love with you. He lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles. When we reached his building, neither of us moved to get out immediately. The rain tapped softly on the roof. The world felt hushed. Stay tonight, he whispered. I don't want this to end yet. I leaned closer. Not tonight, not ever. We carried his gear upstairs like kids trying not to laugh too loud. Watching him move around his kitchen, relaxed and glowing in his own space, something clicked inside me. I wasn't just going home with memories, I was going home with him. This trip had begun with a broken sleeping bag and ended with a promise. That what we found out there wasn't going to stay in the woods. It was real, and whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. I had fallen in love with my best friend, and somehow miraculously he had fallen too. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. Tell me in the comments, do you think we'll make it?